everybody. Today we're going to be going into our little section on serial killers, which deals a lot with like forensic psychology. We'll get more into that at a later date, kind of going more into forensics later on. But ultimately, forensic psychology, as we'll kind of get into, is really a prominent study that really kind of delves into the minds of criminals, or in this case, serial killers. More interested in the questions and the things that are precursors to find criminals. So make sure you guys are taking notes on this. This is kind of a way to kind of save some time in class, kind of focus on to try and do some more hands-on things to where it's not me lecturing and that kind of thing. All right, so with that being said, here we go. All right, so forensic psychology. All right, so what that means is where law meets the study of the mind. So it's kind of where they're intertwined. Um, Applying not just the psychological factors of what's going on in the mind, but also trying to apply the law to that as well. So you'll find that the forensic, psychiatric, psychological professional field, so a psychiatrist again is somebody who's a medical doctor. They provide medical treatment of the psyche, of the mind. A psychologist, though, again, is not a medical doctor. They just study the mind and behavior. So really, a forensic psychology, this really deals with like both the mental health professionals' expertise is the mind and the way it affects behavior and the well-being, but also, and as I said in this case, applies to the medical doctor component, more of like the law and the treatment of helping individuals and digging deep into their minds. So why? So why do we have this in a crime scene? Because you typically have the law and medical aspects sometimes tend to clash. You obviously have biases. You have prosecutors, you have defense lawyers, and then you have just the pure out law and how things work. Um, so they're oftentimes they're at odds, and sometimes the defense are just going to plead insanity. So are they capable? Are they competent to stand trial or not? So this is kind of where the forensic psychologists kind of come into play. The psychiatrists, the psychologists kind of come into play to determine whether or not these individuals are capable to stand trial, whether they are medically insane, by really looking at the case and looking at all the evidence that is supplied, and by doing interviews with these individuals to determine their capabilities at a time of a crime. So as I said before, the role of the forensic psychologist, as I said, their main job is to assess the mental state of the insanity plea. So again, if the defense is going to claim insanity, again, the court systems are going to come in and they're going to look at a forensic psychologist or psychiatrist, and they're going to determine that whether or not that's going to be an accurate plea for the defense to do. So they're going to do their role in seeing the competency of whether or not they're able to stand trial. With that being said, they're with those pieces during the interview and during their assessment that allow the judge to determine and the jury to determine, sentencing recommendations in terms of rehabilitation if there is an insanity plea, if there is a mental disorder, to try to provide that person the help that they need. But also, too, the other important thing is too that these psychiatrists are going to be tasked to do is to provide an evaluation um, of the risk of reoffending again. Are they capable of being rehabilitated? Is there treatments, whether it's a drug, whether it's medication, whether it's some type of therapy that the experts suggest that can help this person in the long run? Or is there a strong urge or a strong determination that they're going to be reoffenders later on? They could provide testimony as an expert witness in trial, either by the defense or the prosecutors. So they can be called to trial and give their recommendations, their evaluations, in court. But they could also be used in child custody evaluations as well, to determine the competency of the parents and provide the child, an adequate, safe environment as well. So it's kind of what their roles, typically are. All right, so now we're going to dig into some of the types of murders, and you're going to be doing something more on this, in class on Wednesday. But one, there's three types of murders. You have your mass murder, you have your spree murder, and you have your serial killer. So we'll get into that right now with what the differences are and how that works. All right, so mass murder. A mass murderer is somebody who kills four or more people in one place at one time. So you got your examples of Columbine is a prime example of that. When somebody goes to a certain location and they try to kill as many as people as they possibly can. They have a clear agenda. They know the why. Again, it could be race related, religious related. It could be the fact that they want to target certain people, or that maybe that have bullied them in the past, um, but they have their why. There is no cooling off period, meaning that these things happen very quick. They really don't last a very long time. It could be seconds, it could be minutes, um, but these are done really, really quickly. Sorry. They want to send a message, um, you know, in terms of kind of having their agenda kind of correlates well with that. Um, they want higher the death toll, better the job done. So again, we've seen cases of that, and whether it's school related or there was a mall movie theater shooting in Colorado several years ago. So their success is based upon the death toll. These typically end with the death of the perpetrator, the person who is the suspect, person who is doing the act. Usually it's either one of two ways. Either it's suicide or they're killed by law enforcement. Um, Typically don't get captured alive, typically, but there are obviously some cases of that. So obviously some famous cases. You have Charles Whitman, the prime example, in the 60s. He sat up in the clock tower at the University of Texas and just started, shooting people. Now this was a little longer in terms of the episode, but 90 minutes. You have Las Vegas a couple years ago, same thing, that didn't last too long. You have the Colorado movie theater shooter, as you guys see here in the picture, are some examples of that. Again, the James Egan Holmes was the movie theater shooter right here, killed 12 in Area 58 in Aurora, Colorado, at the screening of The Dark Knight. Again, this lasted 7 minutes. Um, so it kind of goes, relates to what I said earlier. These things typically don't last very long. They're minutes, usually. Other examples, and here's the Columbine example that I already mentioned, where Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold murdered 13, injured 21. Again, this one lasts about 90 minutes, in length. You have the 1960s, the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham was bombed by the KKK. 4 children killed. So again, that's an example of a mass murder. Okay, now you have your spree murders. A spree killer is much like a serial killer. There's some relatable information there in terms of how they kind of compare. In terms of their characteristics are very similar. Um, so a spree murder is somebody who kills more than one person at 2 or more locations. So we'll get into that here in a minute. This happens quickly. Again, very similar to like a mass murder kind of example. Happens quickly. There's no cooling off period. Usually happens really quick. The killer is constantly moving, hiding, running, planning. Not in one location. Again, very similar to mass murder 2. Often ends in like a suicide after the killing. Okay, some examples down here. Andrew Cunanan killed 5 men in 4 states. So Minnesota, Illinois, New Jersey, Florida. This is a 3-month time period. So it kind of goes, as I said, kills more than one person at 2 or more locations. Happens quickly. So this is all, again, this is now where it's different from mass murders in terms of, I guess, happens quickly is a little bit different. Mass murder, it's within 90 minutes, a couple minutes, couple seconds, whatever the case might be. In this case, it could span out to several months. As you see in this case right here, it goes to 4 different states, constantly hiding, ducking, planning. His next example, Charles Starkweather, murdered 11 people in 6 weeks in Nebraska. So again, just prime examples of that. Are now moving to the serial killer. Now, this is where somebody kills 3 or more people over a period of time that lasts more than a month. Um, there is a cooling off time, so these things aren't necessarily ongoing. The cooling off time could be months, or in some cases, it could even be years in between killings. Um, they use that time, that cooling off period, to unwind, to come down off the killing high, so to speak. And we'll kind of get into that, later on, probably on Friday. Um, you know, with serial killers, they have an immense urge, a gratification, a fantasy of murder um, that we'll get into a little bit, as I said. So again, examples, obviously, Charles Manson, you have your Jeffrey Dahmer, John Gacy, are, again, more of the famous cases of serial killers. All right, so criminal profiling is very important. There we go. Um, they offer, if you're a criminal profiler, you work on cases to offer solutions, to try and figure out the next move of a serial killer. You look in characteristics when you're looking for the individual. Who might this be? What role might this person fit? And there's a lot that goes into it, but ultimately it's their job to kind of put the puzzle pieces together to provide a profile of who the suspect could possibly be. They look at a behavioral investigative tool to help investigators accurately predict and profile the characteristics of an unknown criminal subjects or its offenders. So not just the criminal, but also they look at patterns in terms of the victims. What type is it? Is it women? Is it young women? Is it women with brown hair? Is it women with blonde hair? It could be children. So, like, what's the pattern being set? So it kind of gives law enforcement an idea both on the victims, but also with the criminal as well. Who might they be looking for, or predict the next movement that could possibly happen. Um, Kind of go through this. Okay, so criminal profiling. There's assumptions. One, the crime scene reflects the personality. So the manner of death. So typically with serial killers, they tend to create a very predictable crime scene. Typically, it's the same. The manner in which they commit the murder is typically the same. Um, you can either find some serial killers are going to be very organized. Most serial killers out there are organized. We'll get to that again at a later date. Some are disorganized crime scenes. So again, it's something that the criminal profiling kind of takes into account. Two, the methods of operation remain similar. So there's clues. There's clues that are usually left behind that could be the signature of the killer. So this is an example of a Zodiac killer. That was a serial killer. He would leave a little puzzle, and this was a sign, the Zodiac. It was kind of his calling card feature. So that's one example in terms of a clue. The signature will remain the same. So again, the unique manner in which a crime is committed is typically is the same. The manner, words used, something left at the scene, as I mentioned in the first two examples, would be the same. So there's a signature of that person. And then four, the criminal's personality will not change. So usually these people are usually intelligent, you're usually charming, they usually have a good appearance, they enjoy terror victims, and they have no conscience. So typically, these individuals, serial killers, for the most part, they tend to fit into society. So that's why they're so hard to find, so hard to predict, because as I said, they do have that intelligence. They can be charming. They do oftentimes hold steady jobs. So that's why they're so hard to predict, so hard to find, because they are, societal people, at least on the outside. All right. So anyway, that is it for now. Hope all is well, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday.